Urgent, topical, and timely. Power Breakfast with Tessa Dooms, 6 to 9 a.m.
The time is 8:46. We're landing the Power Breakfast plane on this Friday morning with a news story that has just broken through the sound waves in the last 24 hours. 44 Ethiopians found in a house in Parkmore, alleged human trafficking at play there. We listen now to a voice note by Mavela Masondo, Gauteng police spokesperson.
This is the voice note from Lieutenant Colonel Mavela Masondo of the police in Gauteng. Media statement from the Office of the Provincial Commissioner of the Police in Gauteng. Thursday, the 1st of May 2025. The 44 illegal immigrants who were found locked in one of the houses in Parkmore in Sentin have been taken to the local police station to be processed by the Department of Home Affairs. Investigation is underway to establish how they came to the country and ended up being locked inside this house. It is reported that private security officers were conducting routine patrols in the area when they received a complaint about people who were screaming and making noise at one of the houses in Parkmore. The complaint was then escalated to the local police station and the police proceeded to the scene. At the scene, police discovered 44 males who were locked at the back rooms of the main house. Preliminary investigation revealed that all males aged between 15 and 22 were Ethiopian nationals who were illegally in the country. It is alleged that they were kept against their will in the house. The possibility that these individuals were trafficked into the country cannot be ruled out. It will form part of the investigation. For more media inquiries, I can be reached on 0716085490.
With us now on the line, Melissa Leroux, outreach coordinator at 821, saying to Melissa, what we're hearing here from the police is that we have 44 male illegal immigrants from Ethiopia held against their will. What do we know about, if anything, about how they entered into the country and who was holding them against their will?
Hello, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's always such an exciting opportunity to speak about this topic and just to shed light on human trafficking and the reality of it. I will start by saying that, as we heard now from the police officer from Gauteng, that it's still very much under investigation, but that the factor of human trafficking we cannot turn our face against it. That it definitely is a factor. So at this stage, we do not know who the person was that locked them up. And if I understand correctly, as soon as the police showed up there, the owner of the house ran away, so they still do not know who the owner of the house is. But what we do know is that the majority of the time, people, from our neighboring countries come into South Africa because they're looking for a better opportunity, such as job opportunities, education opportunities. So as soon as they get into the country, either through smuggling, which might be the case for this specific case, voluntarily smuggling themselves into the country, and then as soon as they come into the country, of course, with the hope of having a better opportunity, job opportunity, education opportunity, they find themselves, coerced, deceived, being lied to, denying freedom of movement, and that's exactly what we saw with this specific case. They came into the country, either through smuggling, volunteering, signing up to come into the country, and the fact is, 100% we can say that they're illegal immigrants. But we have the next question is why are they being held? Why were they being held against their will? Why were they, why were they deliberately limiting freedom of movement? I also understand as soon as the police officers arrive, the first thing the Ethiopian nationals ask them is for food and water. And that is also a key sign of, someone being trafficked and being held in a small place without, even having access to food and water. So again, we don't necessarily know at this point if it is trafficking, but all the signs are there.
Yeah.
And like I say, the fact is that they are illegal immigrants, but what is the next step? What is the next question that we can ask ourselves?
Melissa, typically in trafficking cases, I mean, here we're talking about mainly adult men. There are some minors who would be a part of this as well. So let's assume that they are here. They were given a false sense of what will happen when they get here, and now they're held against their will. Somebody holding them there, are they thinking of selling them? What's the next step for the trafficker?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So human trafficking has many faces. It can happen, it can look like forced labor. It can look like forcing someone to do illegal activities.
Okay.
For women specifically, it can look like sex trafficking. It can even, for minors specifically, we've been seeing a lot of even the trafficker, forcing them to go beg on the streets. So it really can look like many things. But I would say the basic of this is exploiting them, exploiting hope and exploiting vulnerability. I think that is the key thing to understand when it comes to, the mind of the trafficker and the goal of the trafficker, not necessarily selling them for something specific, but to exploit them, either their services or, for something commercial like labor services. And specifically when we look at men and men coming from neighboring countries into South Africa, I would say the majority of them come into to do labor work.
Yeah.
And minors, like I say, specifically, it looks like child begging on the street or even child soldiers. It really looks like different types of things. And like I say, trafficking can come in many forms. But at the end, it's just saying that you exploit the person by, giving them this false hope, false opportunity. So they probably promise them this amazing opportunity to come into South Africa and earn this amount of money and, giving them hope. And then as soon as they voluntarily smuggle themselves in, they found themselves in this situation of being, again, held against their will.
Yeah.
And then probably the next step, as you said, the next step would be, for example, forced labor.
Got
or, forcing someone to do
criminal activity.
Illegal.
And
yes.
So, again, on the other side of this, we're trying to understand who these traffickers are and how they operate. Given that you've looked at this over a long period of time, do the patterns show that the traffickers are South African, or are they people from other countries that are trafficking to South Africa? If it is the latter, particularly, why would South Africa be a hotspot for trafficking? What about our setup makes trafficking something that is either doable or easy, worth the risk? Are we just, a country that people see as you're able to get this right in our country?
Yes, I would say there's, multiple factors when it comes to this, and I think it's very complex. But I think one thing to understand is that Africa in general, not just looking at South Africa, is a very vulnerable continent. People are very vulnerable when it comes to jobs, when it comes to opportunities for their children, when it comes to work. We are a very vulnerable. We are very, very vulnerable in general, the whole group. And then obviously when these neighboring countries look at South Africa, they see this, this gold mine. They see a country full of opportunities. And then again, they would come. So I would say the major factor of Africa and South Africa is the vulnerability of our people. And then I would also say that, human trafficking has come a long way, but it's still very much a crime in hidden sight. Every single year we've seen that it's showing more its face, or that people are recognizing it for what it is.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is people do not understand human trafficking. They don't necessarily see it as it is, or they won't necessarily. The first thing that will come to mind is not necessarily human trafficking. But the reality is human trafficking is so present in South Africa, and specifically in Africa as well, that I think a lot of people do not understand it or, recognize the signs. So I think I'd say the two factors are the vulnerability of our country and then people not understanding human trafficking.
Yeah, and I suspect that given this case that has just broken in the last 24 hours, we are going to have this conversation on a more of a regular basis in the next few weeks, Melissa. So as this unfolds, we hope that we can come back to you just to have a better understanding of how it is that we end up in these situations as a country. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Melissa. Your enthusiasm is actually quite appreciated.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been amazing, and I'm so excited to, delve deeper into this conversation. But thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much. That's Melissa Leroux, a research coordinator at A21.